Yeah.
There we go. Hey guys, welcome to a podcast. We have myself, Stephen Maxted, your host, and we are graced with Graeson Fehr here with Fehr Forgeworks today to chat about knives and super cool company. I met him at a trade show a few years back during COVID times. We're just opening up back to the world. And yeah, Graeson, how you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to kind of be able to talk a bit about what I do and how I kind of got where I am and where I'm hoping to end up yet. But yeah, doing pretty good today. How about you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. And tell us a little bit about how did you get started? What got you interested in this? I know we were just laughing, talking for a minute because we started just kind of taking off on conversation, and I'm like, we got to record this. We should just start recording before. So, but let's go back to the beginning point for you. Like, how'd you get doing forge stuff? This doesn't seem like nothing's everyday stuff. But
Yeah.
what got you started in this?
Well, like originally I was more into the outdoors. Like I started as a hobby when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13, and that's kind of where my business started. Like it was never originally, it was always as a hobby, and it was more of an organic growth into a business. And so like yeah, at the time I was kind of always into the outdoors. I saved up all my hard-earned pennies over the summer while I was 13 or whatever. Bought a knife from the store, it was about $60, and the first time I used it, the edge completely folded, like the entire thing broke. So I was pretty upset, and I decided, all right, I'm gonna like see if I can make something better because I was, I like making things and figuring stuff out. So I spent that whole winter just researching knives, how to make them, how they made them traditionally, how to make them nowadays. And then the following spring, I started figuring stuff out, and we lived just outside the perimeter of Winnipeg, so just barely in the country. And I found all kinds of scraps in the field, so like old bricks and all kinds of pipes and stuff. And for free, I fabric cobbled my first forge together. And then because I didn't have a lot of cash, and wanted to do it for free, so I chopped down trees, made like a charcoal torch so that I can make charcoal the traditional way that they've done it for like thousands of years, because free charcoal instead of going through a $12 bag per hour. So then I did that and just started making a knife. And so the first knife I made it out of like an old leaf spring. And once I finished it, I was able to chop it through that old knife, like hammer it through it, completely untouched. So after that, I kind of decided, I was like, okay, if I ever need another knife, I'm going to make it. And then it just kind of kept going. So like I was 12 or 13, slowly kind of kept making a few more things. Eventually my mom was like, hey, why don't you throw something on Etsy or whatever? See if you can like sell it, because I started to have a pile of metal stuff, and I started doing all kinds. Like originally I wanted to do like architectural ironwork actually, so I did a lot of like copper work, a lot of different stuff with like structural steel and like architectural stuff, so like leaves, flowers, that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
And then all of a sudden I started selling stuff on Etsy. Like the first thing I ever sold on Etsy, I think it was a dagger that went to the Yukon, and then I was like, oh, I got to figure out how to ship something, I was like, right? So like, oh shoot, what now, so then I had to figure that out, and then Etsy started kind of rolling. I was getting decent sales, and then just as a hobby throughout high school, and then while I was, I don't know, grade 10, then someone on Etsy had messaged me and they said that they ran a local craft show. Did you want to try it? It was like $40 or whatever. Like, what, couldn't hurt. So I went and I made like $600 in 4 hours or whatever for the craft show. So then I figured, okay, this could be, maybe there's something to this. Wouldn't be a bad, side hustle for a bit. And it just kept snowballing. So then, the following year I did, 3 or 4 more craft shows, and they started going really well. And at that point I was still, in high school. So by that point, I was selling stuff on Etsy, doing craft shows throughout the year. And then what happened then? Yeah, it was just such a natural progression because the demand started coming. Some people were asking about custom work. So then I started to do custom work, which is what I did for a while. And that was a really great way to build my skill set, because people would come to me and say, like, I want this done. And I would, at the time, I had never done it, but I was like, okay, I'll figure it out, And so I spend the time learning and practicing. And at the time, a lot of my materials were not as expensive, and it was a hobby, right? So if it, took a few extra hours, well, whatever, I was having a good time, and I was learning stuff. I picked up so many different skills, just a ton of different things. and then I started to realize like a lot of the custom orders I was getting, the people were coming with very similar requests. So then I started kind of more thinking, okay, well, why don't I start, making a standard line? So then I started like a small standard hunting line. So it was like 2 smaller hunting knives and 1 larger hunting knife, just kind of do. And that was kind of when I started to really think about like actually making a decent bit of money with it, because at that point, then I started to say, okay, this is how I could like make it more efficient. So I changed a lot of the techniques I was doing. All the money that I was making at this point, I just threw back into it. Even for up until the last few years, everything I made, I just put right back into the business. Like the first big purchase I ever had was a belt grinder, and I was 14 or 15 maybe, and it was $1,000, and it was the most I'd ever like. I don't even know what. Probably I hadn't even spent $100 on anything else before at that point.
And you spent $1,000 on a belt grinder.
I threw everything in there, and I was like, it was. I remember that because it was at the time I'd never spent that much, and my dad was like, did you want to keep going with this? And if you wanted to, this is the right thing. So I did it, and yeah, it's the best $1,000 I ever spent, because I've made thousands of knives on that very grinder. So
that's awesome. How did that feel when you made that purchase?
It was good. It was stressful, but like I think it was I kind of got that bite of the entrepreneurial bug. You get that high a little bit, of this is kind of me, and that's part of the drive too. Is like it's all on me. If I fail or succeed, I like to take that on. Sometimes it's the market, it's COVID, whatever it is, but even so, like, I try to accept the losses would be on me too, not just the win, right? And I like that up and down and the responsibility of that. And it's a very exciting. But it was a big purchase. I remember bringing it home and just like looking at it, and my mom was like, "Wow, that's 16-year-old kid or 14, whatever it was, spending that much money on a
tool, piece of equipment." Like, that's so cool that's how it started. I did not know that. So this is the first time, hearing that from me. I think we had like a light conversation at that trade show, but I don't think I knew that much. I knew you've been working on it for a while. But I think that's such like a great, it's probably not the right word, but it is like a very like genuine way of like how you started. Like not the same scale, because I eventually like stopped doing it. But when I was a kid, I started doing like cutting lawns and doing like landscaping, and I just kept saying yes to things and then figuring it out afterwards. And like, you're getting through that. I was just thinking about like what you said there for purchases and stuff. And in terms of like other things that I had to do, there was like you're buying equipment and stuff. And, I used to stress about that like a lot. No one said this to me until like, I think it was a few years ago. I was just expanding like the rental thing, and I was doing kayaks with that company, and someone said to me, they're like, well, what's the worst case scenario? Doesn't go well, you sell the kayaks, someone will buy them. And I was like, in this case, that's a good point. It's a pretty like easy product to like do, and I don't think it's applicable to everything, but in some ways it's like, there is like risk, but it's actually not like that, like as wild as like what you think like that a piece of equipment still usable to this day, right? Like someone else could actually probably went up in value. That thing's probably worth more than what you paid for it. You're probably laughing, making money on both ends of that deal, right?
Oh, for sure. Like Facebook Marketplace is great. If you need to sell something, like you can, I've had a lot of the older equipment that I started with, I've upgraded, I've sold, and
that's awesome, man.
and got new things. That current grinder is like majorly upgraded, but the bones are all still there. But I use it almost every single day still. It's and like you said, like just saying yes to things, and that was kind of how I built the early skills. Now I say no to a lot more stuff that I've kind of got.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah.
How does that feel? How does that feel to say no? Because I still challenge with that. I want to say well, you want to, but what stuff that like you find like you like have, do you kind of have to say no to, and how to like how does that vibe with that wanting to say yes?
Well, at this point it's almost everything custom. I do almost zero custom work. Like in a year, like last year I did just about 1,000 knives, and of those, actually last year I don't think I did any custom work, but this year I've got I'll probably do more knives, but maybe 15 custom orders. That's not including like okay, I like this knife, we can put this handle on, or I want this engraving. It's like fully custom designs. Like I'll do very few custom designs, just because now I've got a better handle on my numbers, and I know how long it'll take me, because I've done basically everything. I've tried so many different things, so I kind of know, okay, this is going to take me way too long. This has this potential complication. If this goes wrong, it's gonna 5 hours is gonna disappear right there. So I kind of have a better idea of what what are the expected costs, especially like dealing with customers and like developing the design. And that was a big part of it, is like it can take a few hours just to get a design figured out, and then okay, well, what about materials? So is it something I have in stock? Because the pain of getting different materials in stock, certain things are difficult to keep in stock. So
and you're talking like, just to explain to like listener here too, is because you do like a lot of different like handles on with your knives. And I don't know if you use different metals or not, but I've definitely noticed like there's different customizations that you've done on like the handles in terms of like look. I don't know what the products are called, but like I'm assuming like some of them are like, well, what are the products that you do make them out of? I should ask you instead of making some assumptions or get you to chat about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I use kind of the two main types is going to be like synthetic or man-made material, or natural like wood. But even among wood, it kind of splits off a little bit too, and same with the synthetic. So if you're doing a synthetic material, it's called like a micarta G10. There's a few others, and it's basically a layer of resin and a type of fabric. So it's going to be either like a fiberglass cloth or linen or something like that. Super durable, super tough. You can get it basically any color of the rainbow, which is fun. So like, and that's useful a lot of times, especially for hunting and outdoor knives, because it's going to be completely waterproof, a bit grippier than wood. You don't have to worry about it getting cold or needing oil or anything like that. Plus, you can get it if you want a bright blue or you want a bright orange, so that if you drop it, you can find it. Then you've got that option. But I also do like the wood. So like, I'll typically go with like a stainless steel blades, so kind of more modern steel with synthetic material, and then high carbon steel blade, which is more of the traditional look, with a wood blade. So like I'll use exotic wood. So mostly exotic, so like stuff from all over the world. So rosewoods, stuff from South America, Africa, and India kind of is where I get most of the stuff I use. But some local woods if I can. So like the only kind of local woods, like they're usually cheaper, but sometimes they're more expensive. But you have to process it properly. So the local woods that we have are usually not oily enough to handle long-term use and rapid temperature and humidity changes. They'll be prone to cracking, swelling, staining, that sort of stuff. So you have to process them through a process called stabilization. So you take a specialty resin in a vacuum chamber, and it pulls all the air out of the pores of the wood, replace it with that resin, and it'll about double the triple in weight. And then it's like basically it's close to waterproof. It's not quite waterproof, but it's much more durable, and you can use different colors with it too. So that depending on what color resin. So then that can create like a unique local. This was cut down in Winnipeg, this tree. Right. And natural woods are like really beautiful, but they're just too soft otherwise. So this hardens them, makes them completely durable. Very cool. It'll last longer than me, So being able to create, something like that'll last that long is kind of a unique process.
That's super cool. I know what I meant. I was just thinking as we're talking here, like we've chatted a couple of times when I made like that trade show, and you did like an awesome job like setting that up. I was just so excited. I don't think that you had the level like what you're, or maybe we're gonna get to this. I forgot that listener didn't hear this one, but like how many like different varieties of knives that you have now? Because I think then, and this was only like a year and a half ago. Not to knock anything, but I think there was like a limited number that were on there at that time. But now it's like, hey, you got like full like lineups. So like, what kind of knives do you have? And so for a listener here, and if you can't see this, if you're just listening or if you are watching the video, you're at the North Forge lab. You do a lot of work out of there, right?
Yeah. I'm here now 5 days a week, usually 8:30 to 5, sometimes longer. So
crazy. But give us a quick little, I know you popped this up before, if it's okay to do so. You want to show us a quick little tour while we're sat here?
So no, North Forge it's in Winnipeg, and it's basically a shared workspace. So there's about 16,000 square feet and about $3.5 million of equipment that you can use. So you pay a monthly fee. You get to use all the equipment and have access to all kinds of crazy stuff. And then there's a few shop spaces, so about 10 individual workshops. So I got about 400 square feet. That's my own. So I'm in it right now. So I've got kind of my little office space within here. So I've kind of divided it into quarters. So I've got a quarter of it's like my office space and like sitting work. So benches are kind of sitting height for like leather work, a bit of Kydex sheets, some assembly. I've also got back is going to be my handle working. So anything I'm glue up with handles. So I've got all my clamps. I've got my everything to assemble it. I've got my parts that need to get assembled there. Beside it, actually on this side here, I've got all my handles. So everything's in drawers. So different woods are in drawers on one shelf, and the other shelf is machined handles because I use a lot of CNC. So I'll get the wood prepared, throw it on the CNC, have a lot of blank handles in stock, ready to go. That way I can kind of be a bit more efficient with how I produce everything. So that's kind of where everything gets finally processed. And then I've also got all the sheath working and fine detail work in the back too. So I've got kiln, heat presses, and stuff like that, so that I can kind of just bounce around and do a little bit of everything. So if I'm working here at my desk, I can have a few other things, going on in the background, and
super cool.
Do that. But yeah,
awesome.
It's a cool space at North Forge here. Like, cause they do Tuesday night. Have you been to the Fab Lab itself? Yeah,
I have been a couple of times. I forget the circuit. Something over the last 2 years. Like we're just popping in to try to get some stuff done because I know that with another company I was doing some work with or helping start up, we were members of North Forge, and I think we had access in there, but I didn't fully utilize that as a tool. I know that something that we did early on that was kind of neat from some brand design stuff was, and I still do it to this day, is behind here. I won't make a mess. Mine's not as organized as that. I got a backdrop here, but using a Cricut machine for making brand logo stuff, I found we could use lots of equipment in there to do that, but for what we needed and the logos, and I'm just trying to think if there's anything on my desk here that's branded and stuff. But basically, I mean, this is an actual made printed mug, but you could in theory make a logo just like this for your merch and stuff like that to be made at home, and that was kind of the main use of it. So we didn't end up continuing that. They're pretty reasonable to purchase. I don't know. Have you ever used a Cricut before?
Yeah. I've used a Cricut before, and then because we've got our vinyl cutter upstairs, which works the same basically, but it's got 4 foot wide or maybe 5 foot wide working area, so you can do full size banners. But actually, that whole area, our whole branding area, is expanding big time in the next few months. We got an additional 3,000 square feet.
Killer!
Mid-April, and we're gonna just expand that. So we've got machines for making really high end stickers, any type of crazy printing, just tons of new equipment. So I'd have to check the equipment list to kind of figure out what's all there, but some cool new stuff. And for me too, so I'm able to use, I don't need a $60,000 printer to print a sticker, but now I have these awesome stickers that I can put on my retail boxes or
totally.
That I'm paying however many 2 cents for 100 of them or whatever it is. It's so
totally.
Well,
it's
do it here.
Yeah, very similar for when we were looking at the Cricut thing to make stickers and different stuff for decals. I mean, it's a little bit more your time and work, but in terms of, you look back to, I don't know if you ever took this in high school or anything, but it was the graphic design class would have probably looked a lot like that lab does in many ways today. But it was quite a big process to even screen print a shirt and stuff. You're going through all these things, and now it's you can literally do this out of your house, to some degree. It might not be perfect in terms of the same thing, because I'm sure someone listening will be oh, it's not the same at all, and it's it's pretty darn close. I've done made enough merch now with that stuff, and then even just testing out, see how logos look on stuff to know that you wash the stuff, it sticks on clothing, you put it through the dishwasher if it is a mug that was made with the Cricut thing, it's still gonna hold up. And that's super cool that you can have access to all that stuff there. Have seen it, haven't used a lot of it, but I'm familiar with it. So that's very cool that you have that experience. I know, sorry, something that we were chatting about before though, what all the varieties of knives that you have amongst the woods and stuff specifically, but what kind of knives? I know we were talking for a minute before you added the fishing fillet knife, you have hunting knives, and then I'm assuming kind of a kitchen set thing, but tell the listener a little bit more about what that looks like for you today. What's the lineup looking like?
Lots more knives. Always trying to bring out some new stuff. So right now I got about 25 designs in my catalog that I routinely keep in stock. So I started mostly with hunting and outdoors, and because that's what I was kind of comfortable with and comfortable testing out, right? Because I knew how they're supposed to be used. I knew how I can actually improve on them. So that's kind of where I started. So hunting knives are both stainless or carbon steel. and I like to harden mine quite hard so they're able to hold a little bit of uh, uh, you know, hold a good edge while being impact resistant. So I use a lot of specialty steels there. But then I've also started to move more into culinary. So culinary was the same thing. That's kind of where some of my last custom orders was through culinary work. So people say, "Oh, I want this, I want this," and that was a huge learning curve. Like it was basically like relearning how to make knives. Even though at that point I'd made, maybe I don't know, maybe 1,000 knives up to that point. This was like, it's like I was starting from scratch almost. So there's so much thinner. The edge angles need to be so much more precise, and the grinding for grinding something thin is really difficult. So, and that's kind of where I started to find that the culinary knives, like the hunting knives that I'll make, and that a custom maker can do, are going to be really good, But you can also make a production knife that's going to be close to that. When you get into kitchen knives, that's where the difference really starts to come in. And I've noticed that the performance of a kitchen knife is going to be a lot higher than a lot of the factory ones, just because like you can do stuff by hand that you can't. A lot of factory, for the most part, you can't really do just quite as precise in factories in terms of like edge thickness, edge geometry. You can get 90% of the way there, but being able to do it by hand kind of gives you that extra 10% of efficiency, and it's definitely noticeable, which that kind of is also exciting, because then when I'm actually using them and testing them out, now that I've cooked a little bit more, then it makes a difference. You can tell like, oh man, this I'm able to cut things. I can cut onions way faster, and it's like one of those little things where it's like, okay, this is literally half the time to chop an onion, just because this is this type of knife, and this is the edge geometry is right.
Well, you know what you mentioned that, I'm sure like these are kind of similar style folks that like I've seen like restaurants and stuff, and also they're like packing up. You ever saw like a chef's table before? You have like the experience of being there with like back with the chef or whatever. And I've had one where all of a sudden they're like cleaning up their, their knives or whatever. They have their own little like kit, and it's like I don't know what to call it. I guess it's like a bag thing. Yeah. And it's like rolls into itself, but all the knives have a sleeve and stuff. And like, they're like very dedicated, like chefs that are like, I don't know what level they're at. When they're doing that, all I can think of is like that movie, I think it's called Chef.
Okay.
Whatever, the guys that got his like knives or whatever, but they take like great pride and care of those, and you can see how is like, if you're cutting way more and doing this stuff, like that's kind of like a high performance anything, like you're going to have better products or customized products for that. Your profession in that sense. That's really cool. Is that kind of like who you're selling to? You're selling like chefs that are using these things every day?
Yeah, sometimes like a lot of, especially doing at shows, a lot of it is like home cooks, but there are definitely still some chefs. So I deal with a few guys out in Edmonton somewhat regularly. I've got a few like regular customers who come back, a few times a year. We'll pick up a few new things every time I got something new.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's interesting seeing my knives being used in crazy places too. So or hearing what they've done, because at this point I've done about 5,000 knives so far.
Okay, I was just gonna ask how many knives are you at? Like, where's the ticker? Because you mentioned like you're like at the stage of 1,000, and I'm like, that's a lot of knives. And so we're about like 5,000 right now.
Close to 5,000, yeah. So okay. I haven't got an exact number, but it's around there. Just based on how many I can do in a week, and then how many. That's about 5,000 knives so far. So mostly, a little bit of everything, but mostly in the future, I think I'm going to be doing a lot of culinary stuff. More challenging. You can't get as many of them done, but it's more challenging. Everybody cooks, right? So
totally.
If you can kind of tailor it so that it works well for everyone. But yeah.
No, that's awesome. Do you sell them? So you make like kind of like you have like a lineup. I guess they're kind of like sold individually. Do you ever sell like a pack for like someone's like kitchen? I'm thinking like lazy, just like myself. If I want to go pick up like a whole like thing of like knives, like I'm thinking like, sorry, this is going to be like insulting to you. Like you're thinking about like the classic Winnipegger, thinking like Costco knife pack. Like I want to bring the whole thing home, or from, even if it was from like a nicer like this might not be even the same like nicer thing, but I know I have some steak knives that are like Henkel or whatever. Or if I want to go like in my, like I said, like my setup that I have here is just kind of like, it's like a little block thing. It's got everything that I think I'm going to need. And then do you put anything together like that for folks where it's like, hey, here's pretty much the standard like kitchen. We got a paring knife, a chef's knife. I don't even know what else the other ones are. We got a bread knife in there. Like we do all that stuff for folks to have. Yeah.
I've kind of got two options. So like I'll talk with the customer and say, okay, I want a full set. So then I've basically got the European style blades and then the Japanese style blades. So they perform.
Yeah. Yeah. What does that mean?
So,
maybe you're gonna get there.
Yeah. If I'm gonna go like really, really generic, and it's not entirely all the way true, but kind of the guiding or underlying principle of European versus Japanese knives. The European knives were designed more of like jack of all trades kind of master of none kind of purpose. So like when you get a Western style chef knife, an 8-inch chef, it's going to kind of work for basically everything. Japanese kind of went on the other side where they've got a million knives that are very specialized for this. If you're cutting this type of chicken, you're going to use this type of knife. If you're cutting this type of fish, there's this many different types of fish knives instead of just a Western, here's your fillet knife,
Interesting.
So they've got all these knives stylized for that. If you got this type of vegetable, if you got, if you're doing onions, here's a specific knife for onions, so they're very, very specialized in that way. So cool. I've got kind of, in terms of my Japanese line, it's more I picked the knives that are kind of more general purpose because most people are more comfortable with that. But I do have a few specialty ones. So like one that I'm really excited about and from the testing I've done with this last one, it's called a Nakiri, and it's basically a square blade. I'll see if I've got a one here. It's basically a square blade, and a lot of people, it looks kind of like a cleaver.
Yeah, cool.
But it's super, super thin. So like it's incredibly thin. It's called the Japanese vegetable cleaver is what they call it.
Okay, that's so cool, man.
It's a fun knife, and the cool thing about the tip, so it's not perfectly straight. The tip kind of does curve up a little bit, so you get a little bit of a rocking action there, and that is really, really good for all kinds of vegetables. And that's kind of one of the ones I was testing out, and surprised at how efficient you're able to cut things with something like that. So like if you do a lot of vegetables, you're doing stir fry, whatever it is, that you really want to dice and chop things really fast. That one's really good, especially onions. Like you can chop an onion so fast and so precise. Like you can do, and different cutting techniques too. So like, and that's kind of where it comes more. If you have a Western style chef knife, you can cut it however, and there's techniques to it as well. But among Japanese knives, you'll have a specific technique for how do I use a Nakiri properly, So you can up on YouTube and start looking at some chefs and see like, okay, how do I do this? What are the techniques to doing this? Okay, well, how you want to cut with the, not the grain, but like the way that the vegetable or the fruit is,
right. In
order to keep the juices in, how are you going to, accentuate the flavors and how you can use this knife to kind of get a little bit of extra, a little bit, it's subtle, but it can make a difference when you pile it all together. Got a bunch of different ingredients and they're all cut in a certain way. It'll,
for sure
affect how it tastes, right? So that one's really fun to use, and I think I'll be really pushing that. But otherwise, for like my Japanese knife, like sets, I'll do usually 3 knives and then give the option of the Nakiri. Same thing with the Western style. I'll do 3 knives. It'll be a paring knife, and then I call it a utility knife, so about a 6-inch blade, and then a chef knife, so 8-inch. So, or if it's Japanese, you're gonna have a paring knife, a petty, which is also 6 inches, and then a gyoto is kind of the chef knife, so that's about a 9-inch blade. And then the Western style, I often will have people want like a cleaver or something like heavy duty. So if you need to do some heavy duty chopping, you're hitting bones or something like that.
Yeah.
Or if something frozen too, like you don't have to, use your knife. That's the beater you can really give her.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, that's great. So you have sets, and it basically comes in like sets of like 4. Is that kind of what I was hearing? You get like a paring and a 6-inch, 8 or 9-inch, depending on like where it's from, and then you have like a cleaver option or the Naguri, or how do you say
Naguri,
that?
Yeah. Nakiri, yeah.
Yeah, I would never be able to spell that. So
when you see it written and you're trying to figure out how to pronounce it, because there's so many different types and finishes too. That's also a difficult part of kitchen knife making, is like the way you polish it is going to affect the performance, because
interesting.
Yeah, you got to think of like surface tension. If something's mirror polished, it's going to like stick really well. So if you're cutting through like a cucumber, you think, man, this is really hard to cut through because it's mirror polished and there's no room, like there's no air that's in between that blade and the cucumber. Like it's creating a vacuum basically. Mirror polish also looks really nice, and it does have certain advantages, but
right.
A lot of people, you don't want to have a knife that's super rough looking, right? And the problem with the rough looking knife is that room that can create air, so in the grind lines, can be a room for bacteria to grow. So you got to have a reasonable polish that's going to keep it sanitary, but not so polished that it's going to be difficult to cut with. But it kind of depends. Again, you can do different types of grinds that will affect that as well. And then, just especially the way I do my business is more finding the happy middle ground. Where most customers are going to be able to use it in the happy. So maybe from time to time I do get chefs or something. They'll say, okay, I need this special grind with this polish because they prefer that. But most of the time, like
that's so cool though. That's like a curve on a hockey stick kind of energy in my mind, where you're like, I only use white tape instead of or whatever it is. Like, or am I like it's so like refined, but you get so good at your art, you got to know everything inside and out. So that's too.
And you got to test it out too. Like that's what I've been working on, especially over the last few months. Whenever I bring out a new design, like my Nakiris, my barbecue line, I started in January, and I'm just now getting into production. It's May right now, right? So it's
cool,
so many. You got to produce them. You got to work on the design, produce a few tests, and so many things to keep in mind, right? So you want to make sure that first of all the blade it cuts right. But balance is also huge, and how's it going to feel in your handle? And same thing, I got to try to make something that's going to fit as many people comfortably as possible. So like, is it going to? How is a 6'5" person and a 6'5" man and a 5'2" lady? How are they going to And they won't. It's not going to be perfect, but if I can have a few options, and that the majority of people can kind of comfortably use that.
Totally. That's like what you just mentioned there for like height differential. I'm thinking of this one like really good buddy of mine and his wife, and I'm friends with both of them. And he's like 6'7". I don't know how tall she is. I don't want to be insulting to her on this side of things, but she's quite a bit shorter. Like in that sense, like I was just thinking to them, I'm like, yeah, you're right, because like they're at totally different angles when they're cooking in the kitchen. I mean, it's always been like way tall. She's never been that tall, so it's like you got to think about that within the family dynamic and who's using that knife. If they're getting that from you, if it's the same person using it all the time, you don't have to worry about it as much, right? Like they're going to be happy. They're chefing it up every day using your knives. So that's so cool, man. And that
kind of leans into the sales method too, like having stuff in stores, in physical locations, at trade shows and stuff. So. And I've seen people that come like, I've been looking at your stuff for a while. I want to see how it fits my hand because I've got different options, right?
Yeah, you want to hold it,
like it, right? And so that's a difficult thing to move away from. Like if I were to go just online, and I do decently, online sales, but the lion's share comes in person or in stores, right? Because people need to feel the product and actually see it in person.
Yeah. What's run this through that if that's okay? Like where can people find your products today? Like what stores you're in, and then what trade shows I know we were talking about this for a minute before. Take your time going through, because I know you got lots on the calendar when we were chatting, but walk us through like what that where people can find you and what's up and coming dates.
Pull up my list here, otherwise I don't want to miss anyone here.
Oh, this is like you're accepting an award and you got to remember to thank everybody kind of energy.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's see here. But online, like my website. So even if you Google Fehr Forgeworks or Knife Store Winnipeg, you'll be able to find me. I'm kind of on near the top there. But I've also got I still have my Etsy page, but the most newest products I'll keep on my website. In terms of other retailers, so DA Neal's, they carry all of my kitchen knives. They're a gourmet kitchen store in Winnipeg here. And they stock tons of knives, and they carry my brand. They've been just awesome to deal with. Just super great to deal with. And they're always, they know what people want. So they say, okay, we really need steak knife sets, or we need this type of barbecue knife because this summer is going to be really popular. And so that's been really helpful to learn. Heartland Archery, they stock my hunting knives and some of my
super cool.
They've been great. William Dick in Niverville, they've got a few hunting knives as well. Manitoba Made Shop, that's in Lac du Bonny. Mainly Manitoba and Clear Lake. That was one of my first retailers. They're in Clear Lake, and I'm also in the Brandon location. And they've done. They always do well with them. I'm in St. Patel Mall, love the local MB. And then actually, last week I just set up another one, 870 Tactical. So they're like a tactical supply place, a lot for police, RCMP, firefighters, that sort of thing. And they have a line of knives, and they wanted some fixed blades. So I met them at the outdoor show. So then we kind of set up a display in the store there, and so I sell through there as well.
Very awesome. What's coming up? I know you mentioned like you got one this upcoming weekend, which would be the 5th, 6th, and 7th of May. I don't know if it's a 3-day event.
Yeah, so that's in the Great Outdoor Expo. So that's like there's 3 outdoor shows big outdoor shows that I do every year. It's through Manitoba Outdoor Show. So the Manitoba Outdoor Show is the main one. That's in February every year. Then we've got the Great Outdoor Expo that's in Lac du Bonny in spring, and then in fall they've got the Arborg Outdoor Show, and that's out in Arborg. So those 3 I do every year. I do a really fun show. It's like all the stuff right up my alley, and you've been there, so you know they've got all kinds of cool outdoor
really sweet
everything, right?
Yeah, I was there as an exhibitor, and you're trying to like walk around, not spend all the money you maybe made at the same show, because they had like fishing, hunting. We were doing like outdoor equipment at that one. And then I don't even know where else there was the bison meat person. Like there's just, it fits super well with what you're doing, and people love that stuff. It's also like a pretty easy build. Like in my mind, like not necessarily like sell because you're doing custom stuff, but it is like an easy tangible for someone to be like, these are awesome, I want one, and like take it home like right from there if it is like a good fit for them sight unseen. I just think this is like the coolest thing since we met at the first show here, and I'm glad we are able to follow up and do this chat. And what else is so we got the trade show loop this year. You're in stores. You're still punching on knives. Any goals coming up for you that you want to hit in terms of like how many you make or how much you're maybe making on them, kind of thing? Anything that you're doing with like materials to commit to buying or anything like that you want to comment on?
Yeah, like I think the big thing is I kind of know where I'd like to be, and I think I kind of mentioned, I'm not sure at the beginning or before, but like basically what I'd like to do is have it so that I've got retailers and a few shows throughout the year, and then come November, December, I'll do a few really large shows, and I think that is kind of a really good self-feeding sales method for my particular product, because if you're at the shows, you get to see what people like in person. You get instant feedback of, okay, I don't like this handle, this, and what people are actually purchasing, So, and then people say, oh, I really want this type of knife. I need this type of knife. Then I can make those type of knives, push those at the stores because I know they're going to sell well. But then also, people say, oh, I want a carbon steel knife or I want a stainless steel knife in this particular instance. So you can figure out which would be better for what option. So I think long term, that's my goal. Like right now, I still do a lot of trade shows throughout the year. So like the last 4 weeks, every weekend I've been at a show, and I did a few more in March, and then also in February, so, and then spring is busy too. I tend to do decent at most of the shows. It's good to like, and like you said, like having me there in the person's mind. So if I'm at one show and they see me again a month later, oh, it's that guy, and they can kind of talk and they get a bit more comfortable instead of just seeing my name on Instagram or on a website, and you see like, okay, it's a knife guy, you get to see me a few more times, and then you can kind of build your brand that way. And like,
totally.
Originally, I wanted to go far all the way across Canada right away. I kind of, in the last year, I've kind of scaled that back a little bit, and there's so much room to grow in Manitoba. And the nature of my brand is it's a really personalized, and it's a really, like a personal brand. So you really have to build, and people have to know me a bit more, and know the product a little bit. It's not just some random thing that you're going to buy. So they know, it's a big purchase. Like a chef knife is going to be what, $300, $400. It's not a small purchase, and to get the repeat customers too. And that's where I found like different lines too. It's like, that's why I think culinary is going to be really the big way to go. How many hunting knives do you really need? But once you have kitchen knife, like you said, with sets, right? You want the pairing knife, you want this knife. Okay, what about barbecuing? Oh, I got some cool new barbecuing blades, and so that's kind of where I'd like to see myself. But I try to position myself in a way that I'm able to pivot rapidly. So like last year I did a big contract with RCMP, so I was able to spend a few months just working on the one contract, and it was a very specialized product, and so we were kind of able to do that. Okay. Would we be able to pause for like 5 minutes?
No problem.
Yeah.
So Graeson, that's awesome that you've done all the stuff, and you're going to be at like local events and stuff. What besides that, I think we might have mentioned before, but how do people get a hold of you as we're kind of wrapping up here? The website is again
Fehr Forgeworks at myshopify.com, I believe. Okay. You can just search Fehr Forgeworks Winnipeg Knife Maker, and I should be the first guy that comes up there.
Okay. Awesome. And social media handles? You're on Instagram. I know I follow you.
Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. So Instagram, Facebook, I got more behind the scenes kind of, I'll show what's new, what I'm working on, how I do what I do, a little bit more behind the scenes of my shop. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to come down and check this out in person or actually pick up some knives from you. So, and listener below, I'll include like the links and stuff to that, even though if you're listening, that's the spots to find Graeson Fehr with Fehr Forgeworks locally out of Winnipeg here, but shipping across North America and different parts of the world as well if you're interested. Graeson, thanks so much for being on with me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity, and can't wait to have you down at the shop, give you a walkthrough at some point. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.